He was a billionaire who lost something extremely valuable. Something that could have put his entire identity at risk. But a poor female construction worker found it and returned it without knowing who he was. Why would someone with so little give back something so valuable? And how did that one honest act change both their lives forever? In the heart of Lagos lived a young woman named Caroline. She was only 24, but her eyes reflected years of struggle and sacrifice. Each day, before the sun had fully risen, she tied a scarf over her worn hair, laced up her old boots, and made her way to the dusty construction site nearby. Caroline wasn't just another worker. She lifted heavy blocks on her head, mixed cement with her bare hands, and pushed loaded wheelbarrows under the scorching sun without complaint. Life had never shown her mercy. At just 12, she lost both parents in a bus crash on their way back from the village. No one stepped in to help. With no family to turn to, she became the guardian of her younger siblings, Daniel, who was only 8, and Blessing, just 6 at the time. From that moment on, Caroline became everything to them. She began by selling bread on the roadside. Then she washed clothes. Eventually, she convinced a local mason to teach her construction work, and that's how she started carrying blocks to survive. Through every hardship, she kept her head high. Even when her hands ached and her legs trembled, she'd sit quietly on the building's edge, look up at the sky, and whisper, "One day, things will change." What she didn't know was that change was already on its way. In another part of the same city lived a man named Vincent, a 30-year-old billionaire known across continents. Tall, reserved, and quiet, Vincent was the face of real estate empires in both Nigeria and the US. His name was on buildings, his image in magazines, but few knew who he truly was. He hated noise, avoided parties, and saw through fake smiles. Though born into wealth, he had never been arrogant. His mother had taught him early, true riches lie in how you treat people, not in what you own, and he had lived by that. Yet with all his fortune and success, he felt empty. Love had always eluded him. Many women had come into his life, elegant, wealthy, admired, but something was always missing. They seemed interested in his image, not his soul. He longed for someone real. Someone who understood pain. Someone who saw him, not his money. Fate was quietly crafting the story that would bring these two worlds together. After over a decade abroad, Vincent returned to Nigeria. Not for business or publicity, but for peace. He wanted a quiet break, to breathe, to reflect, to reconnect with the land he owned across the city. One morning, he dressed simply in a green t-shirt, jeans, and a cap. No security detail, no luxury cars. Just him and a regular SUV. "I just want to feel normal today," he said as he picked up his car keys. He drove himself to a nearby supermarket to grab a few essentials and then planned to visit one of his undeveloped plots. Inside he selected snacks, drinks, toothpaste. Simple things. After paying, he slid his wallet into his back pocket and walked toward his vehicle. What he didn't realize was that the wallet had slipped out. It contained everything: his US driver's license, 2 international credit cards, Nigerian ID, business contacts, and over $2,000 in cash. Meanwhile, Caroline had taken a different route to work that morning. Hungry, she decided to stop by the same supermarket to get a soft drink and a snack. She counted her small notes twice to make sure they were enough. As she exited, something on the ground near the parking lot caught her eye. A black wallet. She stopped, glanced around. No one seemed to be searching for anything. She bent down and picked it up. It felt heavy. Curious, she peeked inside. Foreign currency, business cards, IDs. She paused. Who would drop something like this here? She whispered to herself. She scanned the business cards, hoping to find a phone number she could call, but there was no local contact. The foreign number didn't connect. She could have left with it. No one would have known. But something in her refused. She turned around, walked back into the supermarket, and approached the cashier. "Excuse me," she said politely. "I found this wallet outside, near the parking lot. I believe someone dropped it." The cashier blinked in surprise. "You found this outside? With all this inside?" Caroline nodded and replied, "Please, just give it to security. I hope the owner comes back for it." The cashier looked at her with admiration. "You're a good person." "Thank you." Caroline gave a small smile and walked away. Not far from there, Vincent had stopped at a petrol station. The attendant approached cheerfully. "Good morning, sir. Full tank." "Yes, please," Vincent replied. "Will you be paying with cash or card?" "Card." "Then please pay first, sir. We've been having network issues." Vincent nodded and reached for his wallet, but his pocket was empty. He froze. Checked his other pocket. Nothing. He opened the car, searched every compartment. Still nothing. His pulse quickened. "My wallet," he muttered, eyes wide. Panic set in as he turned to the attendant. "Please give me a moment." He jumped into the car and sped off toward the supermarket. As he drove, he whispered, "God, please. Let it be there. Let someone good find it." He arrived and rushed inside, walking straight to the counter. "Excuse me," he said urgently. "I was here about an hour ago. I think I lost my wallet. Has anyone seen it?" The cashier studied him. "You're the man who bought snacks, right?" "Yes, that's me," Vincent answered. She nodded. "A young lady found a wallet shortly after you left. She brought it to our security team." Vincent exhaled. Relieved. "Thank God. Can I please speak to them?" The cashier stepped away and returned with a tall man in uniform. His name tag read, Mr. Amos. "Good evening, sir," the man said. "Good evening," Vincent responded. "I lost my wallet earlier today." The cashier said someone returned it. The security officer nodded. "Yes, sir. A lady brought it in not long ago. But do you have any proof that it's yours?" "Yes," Vincent said immediately. "My business cards are inside. My name is Vincent Benjamin. You'll also find a passport-sized photo inside," he said calmly. The security officer opened the drawer beside the counter, took out the black wallet, and began checking. He spotted the business cards and then the photo. After a brief glance at Vincent, he nodded. "You're right. This is yours." He handed the wallet over. Vincent opened it gently, checking every section. Everything was intact: the cash, documents, cards. Nothing had been touched. He held it close for a moment, then looked up. "Where is the lady who brought this?" The cashier gave a small smile. "She didn't say much. She just came in, bought some snacks and a drink, and handed it over. I don't even think she knew who you were." "She didn't leave a number?" "No, sir. She didn't even wait around for a thank you." Vincent paused, then requested a piece of paper and a pen. He wrote down his phone number slowly, folded it carefully, and gave it to the cashier. "If she ever returns, please give her this. Tell her to call me." "I will, sir," the cashier replied. Vincent reached into his wallet, took out some Naira notes, and handed them to both the cashier and the security officer. "Thank you, not just for keeping it safe, but for being part of something rare, honesty." They both smiled, grateful. As Vincent stepped out and walked toward his car, he glanced around the supermarket, quietly hoping to see her. But she was gone. Still, something deep within him said this wouldn't be their last encounter. That night, Vincent lay awake in bed. The room was dark, but his mind was wide open. He turned from one side to the other, but rest wouldn't come. His thoughts circled back to the woman who had returned his wallet. A stranger, yet somehow unforgettable. She hadn't touched the money. Hadn't looked for recognition. She just gave it back and walked away. "There are still people like her," he whispered. "People who do good without expecting anything in return." He sat up, ran a hand across his chest, and stared at the ceiling. "I wish I knew her name. I wish she'd left a number. I hope she returns. She deserves to be appreciated. People like her. They're rare." 3 weeks passed. Caroline hadn't thought about the incident in days. Life had kept moving. She had finally managed to save a little extra and decided to visit the same supermarket to buy groceries for Daniel and Blessing. She looked tired, her steps steady but slow as she pushed the shopping trolley through the entrance. She didn't notice the cashier waving toward her. "Excuse me, Ma," the cashier called out. Caroline kept walking, focused on the list in her head. "Ma, please," the cashier said again. A kind-looking woman nearby tapped Caroline's arm gently. "The cashier is calling you." Caroline turned, surprised. The cashier quickly came out from behind the counter and approached her with a warm smile. "Good afternoon, Ma. I'm sorry to disturb you, But I've been waiting for you. Someone left something for you. She handed Caroline a small folded paper. Caroline blinked, confused. Who gave you this? The man whose wallet you returned. He came back the same day and asked me to give it to you if you ever came again. Caroline stared at the note in her hand, her heart beating faster. 3 weeks had passed. She hadn't expected this. She had almost forgotten about the whole thing. Thank you, she said softly. He seemed really serious about wanting to thank you, the cashier added. Caroline nodded and continued her shopping, but her thoughts were no longer in the store. She held the note tightly, wondering what to do. On her way home, she carefully placed the paper in one of the shopping bags and carried it close. Back at home, she dropped the groceries in the corner and headed straight to the kitchen. She didn't mention the note to anyone. Later that evening, as Blessing was tidying up, she gathered the used shopping bags and, without realizing, threw them into the large waste bin outside. The next morning, Caroline woke up feeling unusually calm. As she folded her bed cover, her mind drifted to the note. A small smile touched her lips. I'll call him today, she whispered. But when she went to look for it, she couldn't find it in her handbag. Then she remembered. She had placed it inside one of the shopping bags. Her heart skipped. Blessing, she called out. Blessing entered from outside. Caroline looked at her, slightly worried. Please check if any of the shopping bags I brought yesterday are still here. I kept something important inside. Blessing hesitated. Was it something small? Because I already threw all the bags away yesterday. Caroline's eyes widened in panic. No. She rushed outside, barefoot, straight across the street to the large green waste bin. She didn't care who saw her. She opened the lid and peered inside, but it was empty. Completely cleared out. The trash collectors had already been there. She stood still, shocked. Her shoulders dropped, and she sat quietly on the edge of the pavement. Her eyes welled up, and slowly, tears rolled down her cheeks. She looked up toward the sky. God, why now? How could this happen? But after sitting there in silence for a few moments, she wiped her face with the end of her dress, took a deep breath, and stood up. If this is meant to be, it'll happen again, she whispered. She thought of going back to the supermarket, maybe asking the cashier for the number again. But as she turned to head in that direction, she paused. She didn't want to appear desperate. So instead, she walked quietly back home. But deep inside her, something still held on. Hope hadn't died completely. 2 more weeks passed. Life carried on as usual. Caroline was back at the construction site, rising early, coming home tired, just like before. Then one quiet Saturday morning, a neighbor knocked on the door. Caroline, the woman said, there's an outreach happening today at the local government secretariat. They're giving out food, books, even free drinks. It's from some big real estate company. You should take the kids and come. I'll be going too. Caroline nodded. All right, let's go. When they arrived, the place was crowded but orderly. People waited in line patiently as volunteers handed out bottled water, beverages, and bags of food. Caroline received a small pack of rice and a tin of tomato paste. As she turned to leave, her eyes caught something. By the refreshment stand, a young woman was serving drinks. Caroline looked twice. It was the supermarket cashier. The woman looked up, squinted slightly, then broke into a wide smile. Ah, you, she said cheerfully. You're the lady who returned the wallet, right? Caroline smiled. Yes, I am. But I lost the number you gave me. The cashier's grin widened. She leaned in and lowered her voice. He's here. The man whose wallet you returned. He's the one sponsoring this whole event. Caroline's heart skipped. She froze. The cashier glanced around and then gently pointed toward a black SUV parked quietly near the edge of the field. That's him, she whispered. He's sitting inside. Caroline's eyes followed her finger. The vehicle was sleek and tinted, but there was no mistaking it. She felt her chest tighten. Let me go and tell him you're here, the cashier added excitedly. Caroline quickly shook her head. No, please. It's okay. There's no need. I didn't come for that. But the woman was already walking off, smiling as she approached the car. Caroline stood still. Her palms were sweating. Her heartbeat raced. She watched the cashier speak to someone through the open window, then gestured toward her. A few moments later the car door opened, and a tall figure stepped out. Vincent. He scanned the crowd, then saw her. Their eyes met. He began to walk slowly toward her. When he reached her, he smiled gently. I finally found you, he said. Caroline looked down for a second, then raised her eyes with a soft smile. Good afternoon, sir. What's your name? He asked quietly. Caroline, she replied. Vincent nodded, his expression full of relief. You have no idea how long I've been trying to find you. Caroline looked away briefly. I lost the number the cashier gave me. I kept it in a shopping bag, but my siblings threw it out. He smiled softly. That's okay. Maybe this was meant to happen today. Maybe this moment isn't by chance. She glanced up at him. How did you hear about the event? He asked. A neighbor told me, she said. So I decided to come with my siblings. I'm glad you did, Vincent replied. Then he took out his phone and handed it to her. Please enter your number. Caroline took the phone with both hands, typed in her number carefully, and gave it back. Vincent immediately gave her a missed call so she could save his contact. Please call me when you get home, he said with a kind smile. I will, she replied, her voice calm, eyes glowing. Before he left, Vincent reached into the SUV and brought out a small brown envelope. He handed it to her gently. Just something small. Use it for your groceries. Caroline held it close to her chest. Thank you, sir. God bless you. Vincent gave her one last smile, then walked back to the group of volunteers. Caroline made her way to the main road, envelope and rice pack in hand. She waited at the bus stop, and soon a yellow minibus pulled up. She climbed in and squeezed into the back, resting her handbag on her lap. The bus was noisy and packed. When it reached her stop, she reached into her bag for fare. Her phone was sitting right on top of her money. Without thinking, she placed it on her lap to reach the cash underneath. Madam, your money. You're delaying, the driver barked. She quickly handed him the fare, picked up her bag and groceries, and stepped off the bus. In the rush, she didn't notice the one thing she'd forgotten. Her phone. It slid from her lap onto the floor of the bus as the door shut behind her and the driver sped away. She had no idea it was gone. Not yet. When she reached home, she opened her bag, smiling to herself. She was about to call Vincent to say thank you again, but the phone was missing. She stood still. Then it came rushing back to her. The bus. The rush. Her lap. She sank slowly to the floor, heart aching, hands trembling. Her eyes filled, but no tears fell. She closed them and whispered, God, you are still faithful. Even in this loss, her belief didn't shake. That same evening, Vincent sat on his couch, smiling at the thought of her voice. He dialed her number. It didn't ring. The line went straight to voicemail. He tried again after 30 minutes. Still off. Maybe the battery's dead, he said aloud, brushing off the concern. By morning, his worry grew. He drove straight to the supermarket, walked in and asked the cashier, Do you know where that young lady lives? Caroline. She shook her head. No, sir. She never told us. She just came to shop. Vincent sighed. Disappointed. Thank you. He left, but his thoughts were clouded. Did she change her mind? Did something happen? He couldn't tell. 2 days later, Vincent decided to visit a distant relative. He needed to clear his head. While driving through a quiet street on the outskirts of town, something made him slow down. An elderly woman was sitting by a roadside stall, her head leaning against the wall. A few bananas lay on a small table beside her. At first, she looked familiar, but he couldn't place her immediately. As he got closer, his heart gave a sudden jolt. He knew her. He pulled over, turned off the engine, and stepped out slowly. Walking closer, he stared at her worn face, her thin frame, the way her legs stretched out tiredly beneath her wrapper. Then he spoke softly. Mommy. The old woman stirred, startled. Who are you? She asked, her voice tired. Vincent knelt a little, smiled gently. It's me, Vincent, son of Benjamin, husband of Isabella. Her eyes widened. She stared at him closely, searching his face. Then her hands flew to her mouth, trembling. Benjamin's son? Vincent took a deep breath as he stared into Caroline's eyes. Everything about her, the strength in her stance, the weariness in her face, the honesty in her gaze, told him this wasn't just coincidence. She had once helped him when he needed it most, and now, seeing her in this condition stirred something deep within him. "Caroline," he said again, his voice soft but steady. She dropped the block from her head and stood frozen, unsure of what to expect. "I never forgot what you did," Vincent continued. "That day I was lost. Completely. You found my wallet and didn't take a single note, even though I later found out you were struggling. I waited. I truly waited for you to call the number inside. I even set aside something for you, but you never reached out." Caroline looked away, her throat tightening. "I didn't want anything in return," she replied quietly. "I just did what I knew was right." Vincent stepped closer. "And that's exactly why I want to do something now. You showed me honesty when you had every reason not to. And here you are, still fighting, still standing strong." He reached out gently and took her hand, covered in cement and dust. "You don't have to keep living like this. Come with me." Caroline hesitated, her eyes wide with uncertainty. "Why now?" she whispered. "Why me?" "Because you deserve better," Vincent replied. "You helped me, a complete stranger. Now I want to help you, not because I pity you, but because I admire you." She looked into his eyes, searching for signs of insincerity but found none. Slowly, she nodded. Vincent led her to his car, helping her in without a word of judgment. The ride was quiet, but the silence was warm, comforting. Back at the house, he offered her a clean room, fresh clothes, and a warm bath. She stood for a moment at the door, speechless. "This is too much," she said. "No," Vincent replied gently. "This is just the beginning." The days that followed brought peace to the old woman he had rescued earlier. She laughed more, her face brighter than it had been in years. Caroline, too, slowly settled in. She spent her mornings helping around the house and her evenings talking with Vincent on the veranda. They shared stories, some painful, some funny, but all honest. One night, as they sat outside under the stars, Vincent looked at her and said, "You know, I never believed people like you still existed. Pure, selfless, brave." Caroline smiled faintly. "And I never thought I'd ever meet someone who could change my life just by believing in me." He reached for her hand, holding it gently this time. No more questions. No more hesitation. Just a quiet bond forming, strong, real, and deep. And as their lives slowly began to blend, one thing became clear. Fate didn't just bring them together by chance. Something greater was writing their story. One act of kindness at a time. If you'd like to see what happens next, let me know in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you won't miss the continuation of this heartfelt journey. Thank you for watching.